Alrighty, so it's time to review these midweek action from, I believe, match week number 24, which there's 10 games that happened. Well, actually 9.5, because one of those games about a week ago, we played 45 minutes and then the game was stopped because of inclement weather. And then this midweek basically finished off the second half of that game. But nevertheless, what's interesting about this midweek action is that I think this is the first time this season where both of my team that I root for actually won. Both Minnesota and the Quakes actually won this midweek. And what's even more interesting is the fact that I went to the game between the Quakes and the Sounders, and you can't call me a curse anymore now that I go into the game and I actually saw them win in person. And we'll, of course, get to that game in just a bit. But first of all, let us actually get into the first game, which is New England versus Atlanta. So the Revs, of course, getting two early goals in this one, and then they basically hand it to Georgie Petrovic and say, well, you're going to help us stop all the chances that Atlanta was going to put on them, man. It seems like Petrovic answered that call and then some. So, as I mentioned, they got two early goals first in the third minute as Matt Polster would score here to make it 1-0 in favor of the Revs. Now, I wrote goal of the week with a question mark at that point, but we probably know what is the goal of the week this week as we'll talk to about one of the game, and especially here's a little spoiler alert. It's the game I went to. But yeah, that was a great goal there from Matt Polster, but definitely not great clearance from Atlanta. I mean, that one was clear right to Matt Polster there, and Matt Polster, he's not known to strike one from long range, but he did there, and look what happened. It went into the back of the net, so it gives the Revs a 1-0 lead, and then 6 minutes later, it'll be 2-0 as Maroney would score from heel to make it 2-0 in favor of New England, and that was vintage Carlos Hill there. I mean, he put a Kevin De Bruyne-esque ball right through the middle, and Veroni was in on goal there. Yeah, he was not gonna miss that one. And yeah, the Revs were up 2-0. It was a dream start for New England. But in the 12th minute, Amada actually looked to try to respond for Atlanta, but he hits that one right to Petrovic before Wolf would hit one that was actually saved awkwardly by Petrovic. Then Petrovic denied Lennon in the 26th minute. Atlanta was pressing to trying to get one back, and then on the other end, Guzan was able to deny Veroni of his second goal of the night. But we do head to halftime with New England leading 2-0. Now in the second half, this is where the Georgie Petrovic show continue. He first denied Amada from close in the 47th minute as Atlanta was on the front foot. They were looking to get one back. Bolwood puts it wide from long range before Etienne puts it wide from close. Petrovic then denied Cho from close range, and then he absolutely robbed Peralta. I mean, Peralta, he cannot believe how he wasn't able to score this one, or actually how the goalkeeper was able to save it because he hit that one from not only from point blank but with just so much power. I have no idea how Petrovic was able to save that. Like that was just cat-like reflex and then some from Georgie Petrovic, and I mean, Ro Petrovic is just a wall right now. It just feels like, yep, this looks like it's one of those games where he is gonna steal the spotlight in this one, and he's refused to be beaten. And if you're Atlanta, that is bad news because when you ran into a Georgie Petrovic that is really on his game, yeah, you're probably not gonna score a goal in this one. Hernandez did try to do so, but he puts that one into Connecticut before Cho would puts it wide from close range, and it feels like New England is clearly going to go through the full park the bus mode again. New England, they probably told Georgie Petrovic that, can you help us preserve this 2-0 lead because we started getting a little bit tired because of these midweek action, and Petrovic clearly kindly say he would try his best, and he definitely did, and they tried to preserve the 2-0 lead and the clean sheet. Unfortunately, they don't get the clean sheet though, as Matichil finally broke up the clean sheet for Petrovic as he scored here in the third minute of stoppage time to make it 2-1 in favor of New England. But that was a little bit too late for Atlanta to do anything. In fact, they didn't even get the ball into the box from the kicked off. The full time whistle was blown. And yeah, New England was able to win 2-1 in this one. Shots in this one, lots of shots. 24 compared to the 16 that New England has. 11 shots on goal compared to the 6 that New England has. 5 shots off target for the 10 that Atlanta has. 5 shots was blocked for the 3 that Atlanta has. And possession-wise, 53% possession compared to the 47% possession that New England has in this game. And again, for Atlanta, unlucky. I mean, they play well in this one, but they just ran into Georgie Petrovic, and this is why Georgie Petrovic is probably going to be considered the goalkeeper of the year this season, and why there's a lot of offer. I'm assuming is going to be offered. I mean, his stock is just rising higher and higher as the season goes along because he's just immense. Like he really reminds me of what Andre Blake was for the past couple of years, just being an absolute monster. Go stopping everything. And as I also said before, it's hard to believe the fact that he might even be better than what Matt Turner was with New England. Like Matt Turner was great for New England, but what Petrovic has done during his time with New England is probably even best because I know Matt Turner was good, but he was not as this good as what Petrovic is doing right now. But that being said, moving on in the next match, we got FC Cincinnati and the New York Red Bulls, and Cincinnati stole this one because this was a game where I think it's kind of almost reminiscent of that playoff game a couple years ago where the Red Bulls were leading for a long time, and then Cincinnati kind of stole it and move on into the next round, and they kind of did the same thing in this one too. So the first shot of the game did came in the 15th minute as Van Zier had an acrobatic effort that goes wide. Again, not much chances that happened early as the shots were only 1-0 through 30 minutes. By the way, with this being a midweek action, I would say that this is really the first time this midweek where we didn't really have like just some crazy score line because usually midweek games they usually have some of the craziest score line that we have. Now that doesn't mean we have seen some crazy see MLS After Dark thing. Oh boy, we definitely saw a couple of MLS After Dark moment in some of these games that we'll go to. But in the 25th minute, penalty actually was given to the Red Bulls as Haglund handballed that in the box. Omer Fernandez, of course, steps up for the penalty, and he slots that one home to give the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead. Harper trying to make it 2-0, but he missed just wide from long range, and then Luquinhas puts it high from long range in the 40th minute. Though on the other end, Cornell actually denied Barrio as the flag went up, and that was really the first chance that Cincinnati has had. I mean, Cincinnati was really struggling in the first half, getting anything going on the attacking end, but obviously that wouldn't count as a save because the flag already went up. And actually, Cincinnati would finish the first half with 0 shots. I think this is the first time that Cincinnati actually have gone the entire first half without registering a single shot. Though that kind of came to an end in the second half quickly as 2 minutes in, they finally get their first shot as Ordonez would puts it high before Acosta had Cincinnati first shot on goal as he hits it right to Cornell. And then Ordonez would puts it wide in the near post, and this is more like the Cincinnati that we saw as a Sapporo Shield leading team. I mean, they finally started to get into this game, pressing for the equalizer, and they do get it. As in the 77th minute, a penalty was given to Cincinnati as VAR deemed that Duncan brought down Arias in the box. That there was no question about that one. I mean, the only question is I don't know how in the world did they not get it the first time, but thankfully there was VAR there to overturn that call in the delights of Cincinnati fans. And yeah, Lucho Acosta steps up for the penalty. He's not going to miss that, and he doesn't as he slots it home to ties the game up at one apiece. Van Zier did look for a response, but he puts it high in the 84th minute. And just as we thought that this one was going to end stalemate, in the third minute of stoppage time, Wobodo would score the winning goal of this one, but this should have never been getting past Cornell. I mean, Carlos Cornell, this was not a great goal for him to concede. Like this one for Wobodo, it wasn't really hit very well. I mean, it might have took a slight deflection, but there was just no pace to this ball. I mean, it was almost like a one hopper where Wilberto just kind of had a Rob Green moment there, just kind of simply dropped that ball and then it nestled toward the net. I mean, again, that is not a moment that Carlos Cornell would look back at. And as much as Carlos Cornell has had some good games this season, he has had some of these kind of games where he's commit some really like bad goalkeeping howler that has cost the Red Bulls at time, and in this one, it cost them a point. In this one, as in the end, Cincinnati steal this one. They won 2-1 on the road. Shots in this one, 7 shots committed, 9 that the Red Bulls had. 1 shots on goal for the 3 that Cincinnati has. 2 shots off target compared to 8 that the Red Bulls had. 2 shots out of the block compared to none that the Red Bulls had. And possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession the Red Bulls has in this one. And as I said before, when you're a good team like Cincinnati, you're gonna get those kind of luck. And that in this game, yeah, they kind of got a little fortunate. Though I thought in the second half they played much better, and that that was kind of the difference for them to get all 3 points in this one against the New York Red Bulls. But that being said, moving on in the next match, Got Houston and Minnesota. So, this felt like it was the complete opposite of the game between Minnesota and Austin FC. It feels like the Loons played an Uno reverse card in this one because you know how in the last game I was kind of frustrated the fact that the Loons played well. They put a lot of shots in front of Stuver's net, but they couldn't find any finishing whatsoever. Well, this game, it was the opposite. It was them not creating a lot of chances, but they were being clinical in front of goal, and they were also kind of doing their little road heave mode at times in this one, letting Houston had all the possession, and Houston just had no answer in terms of how to break down this Loons back line, and also not to finishing. They fell in the victim of what the Loons was with Austin last game, where there was just no finishing ability found in them. Early on, Houston was on the front foot, and I mean, it looked like it was a row heave mode from minute one for the Loons because they just completely go into a low block. It was just wave after wave of pressure that the Dynamo has, and I thought, well, looks like this may be one of those games where it seems like Adrian Heath is trying to hope to nick a draw out of it, and I'm pretty sure that's not gonna work out, especially with the way that you do not do that when you go on the road for a midweek game against Houston when it's hot like this. But in the 11 minutes, Steris would hit it wide from close range. By the way, I say hot like this. It was 99 degrees when this game kicked off, and it was like feeling 110 degrees. It was an inferno when this game started. But in the 15th minute, to my biggest surprise, Minnesota takes the lead. It's Longwane, the one that gives Minnesota a 1-0 lead completely against the run of plays. Like, that was literally the first real attack that Minnesota has, and they score. I mean, it doesn't get more effect than that. So Aliu did try to response in the 19th minute, but he puts it wide on the volley. And then in the 25th minute, Minnesota make it 2-0, and it's the Pookie party making the first effect in MLS as he scored here from Reynoso to make it 2-0 in favor of Minnesota. I mean, I know everybody will talk about Timu Puki's debut goal, but you got to give a lot of credit to Emmanuel Reynoso. I mean, there's a reason why he's considered one of the best number 10 in the league. Easily in my book, top 5 number 10 in the league because, again, this was very similar to what we see what Carlos Hill did when he played a perfect through ball to Veroni there. Here, Reynoso just play a perfect through ball right to Timu Puki, and yeah, when Timu Puki is one-on-one with the keeper, you know he's not gonna miss that, and he doesn't. And yeah, that the Puki party has definitely started. It's 2-0 in favor of Minnesota, and again, it came out of nothing too because it was all because of a great turn from Reynoso putting Puki through there, and Minnesota was leading 2-0. Houston again continued to dominate possession, but there's just no way through against this very resilient back line for Minnesota, who I thought they played much better in this game. I mean, in the last game against Austin, it was just they definitely did not show up in that game, but in this one they definitely showed up, and they were not allowing Houston with any type of space to operate. So in the 40th minute, Herrera would blast it high from long range before Aliu would hit one right to Dane St. Clair. Bossy would also do the same thing just a couple of minutes later before Dotson just missed wide there. And I mean, he did not miss that one by much. In fact, I think it actually took the deflection there. But yeah, he almost scored his trademark banger because, Hassani Dotson. Besides, maybe this season he did score one goal from a scrappy play. He's bangers only in terms of his goal. He scored and he almost scored another one there. Well, that also came over a bad turnover from Houston. And again, if you're Houston, you're dominating possession. You cannot turn the ball over for very easily. Though at that play, it was just them turning the ball over in their own box. So that's even worse with the way that you cannot turn the ball over in your own half and not expect that you're potentially going to. Let's see. But we do head to halftime with Minnesota leading 2-0 in the second half. Dane Sinclair would deny Artur from long range. That was probably the one of the best chances that the Dynamo has because Artur really struck this well, and Dane Sinclair does a good job to push that one away. And I mean, it looks like he has carried his good game against the U.S. into this one too. This is why I had that conflicted feeling when the U.S. took on Canada when I see Dane Sinclair in goal for Canada. That I'm really hoping he don't have a bad game in that one where that could really spill over into club level. But again, I thought he had a good game in that one against the U.S. even in a losing effort, and he had another good one in this one too. because after Oferson heads it high on the or from the corner in the 53rd minute, he would deny alley from close in the 56th minute, and then Steris would blast it high from close in the 57th minute, and Houston definitely was pounding on the door for one back, and I feel like the Loons started to kind of once again go mode and just it feels something similar to the one where I saw with them against RSL, where they're giving just way too many opportunity, and eventually, if they concede one, this could go really south quickly for this team. But to their credit, eventually they do settle down. They did ride out that pressure, and you can start to see that the frustration was growing on this Houston side, and maybe fatigue was starting to show on this attack too. Because, like I said, this is a midweek game, and when you have weather like this in Houston, where it was like 100 degrees outside, fatigue could be a factor. Though again, I also got to give a lot of credit to that Minnesota backline. The fact that I mean, yes, fatigue definitely started to show on this team too, but it really they were still able to keep themselves on a good defensive shape, which is something we don't usually see a lot of team able to do, especially when you're going on the road against the Dynamo. In the 84th minute, Sevchenko then heads it high from close range. Before in the 87th minute, Minnesota shut the door. It's Ismail Tajouri that shuts the door for Minnesota to make it 3-0 in this one. The post would then deny Herrera in the 8th minute stoppage time, which kind of sums up the game for Houston. Just not good enough in terms of their finishing, and the full-time whistle was blown after that. So yeah, in the end, the Loons somehow in a game where they definitely didn't play as well as they did in the last one, they somehow win 3-0 in this one. And the shots in this one, 24 shots compared to 8 that Minnesota has, 4 shots on goal compared to 6 that the Dynamo has, 10 shots off target for the 1 that the Loons had, 3 shots that was blocked for the 8 that the Dynamo has, and possession-wise, 73% possession compared to just 27% possession that Minnesota has in this game. And soccer sometimes is a weird sports where, again, in one game you can look very good, but you can't finish and you lose badly, and then in the next game where you don't have a lot of chance and you don't look that good on the attack, and yet you somehow be clinical and win 3-0. I mean, it's weird to see, but I honestly take it. I think it's a great bounce back for this Loons team. That again, when you go on the road against Houston, a team that doesn't lose a lot of home game, and especially we're in the middle of the summer right now, where the temperature is at its worst. Right now in Houston, this is a huge road win for Minnesota, and again, they continue to show that this team is a team that, for whatever reason, they show that road warriors mentality, able to always win games on the road. But now the question is, can they win games at home? Because that's the thing that's kind of frustrates me about this team. Where I know they can do that on the road, but can they do that at home? Because if they can do so, then there's no doubt that this team can get themselves back up of the playoff line. I think they're just below it right now, currently in 10th place, but we'll see whether or not if they can follow this kind of performance in that next game when they do go back home to play against LAFC. But that being said, moving on in the next match. Speaking of a team that has been a road warriors this season, it's RSL, and you would think that for RSL they would be a little bit disappointed that they didn't get a win in this one, because I thought that they were the better team in this one. They definitely had a lot of chances in this one, but unfortunately, they were only able to get a draw out of this one. Though I will say that they did come back 2-0 down, and that definitely show that never say die, and kind of what RSL is, with that X-Dog kind of mentality that they have. So in the first 20 minutes, if you missed the first 20 minutes of this game, you did not miss much, because nothing happened in the first 20 minutes. So we fast forward to the 24th minute, where the first shot of the game see McIntosh deny Palacio from long range. Again, there are a lot of games lately that there has been nothing that has happened in the first 20 minutes, and that maybe has a lot to do with just fatigue that's starting to get in terms of these teams. It's really the dog's days of summer for these teams that play so many games, and I'm pretty sure a lot of these teams cannot wait until when we get to that little mini break before Leeds Cup does start in the end of July. But in the 27th minute, the post would deny Oviedo from close range. As I thought RSL, they woke up. They definitely were pushing to try to get the opener. But instead, it's Sporting KC the one that gets the opener. It's Daniel Showy. He scored from Russo here to give Sporting KC a 1-0 lead. That was the first shot of the game for Sporting KC, completely against the run of play. And then on their second shot of the game, they scored two. This time it's Johnny Russo scoring from Tommy to give Sporting KC a 2-0 lead, and really this game kind of completely turned on its head. I mean, for RSL, they have completely capitulated in the last 5 minutes. They were looking comfortable, looked like they were going to get the opening goal, and now they found themselves down 2-0. But like I said, this is RSL, and if there's one thing about RSL and for Pablo Mastroianni team, they don't give up. And in the second half, it definitely showed that because straight off the bat, they would get one back. It's Maswowski scoring from Arango to make it 2-1 in favor of Sporting KC. Now, there was a question whether or not if Maswowski actually stay on side, and he kind of even was thinking about that. He was like celebrating, and then he kind of looked at the linesman thinking, is that onside or is that all offside? But they said that it was onside, and I'll tell you what, it was very close. I think when I look back on the replay, it was just too close for me to say that they overturned, especially the angle that they have. It wasn't really a good angle, and I don't think that was enough for them to overturn. So the goal stands. It was 2-1 in favor of Sporting KC at that point. But McIntosh then denied Arango from long range. Chicho Arango, another good game in that one. Or in this one, but RSL was on the front foot again. They now were pressing for the equalizer. McIntosh would deny Ruiz from long range. Kendo McIntosh also had a good game in this one, and he may be one of the reasons why that there was only 2 goals that gone past him, and that, in some way I kind of feel bad for him because his defense didn't help him at all in this game. Arango then hits it right to McIntosh in the 53rd minute before Oviedo would hit one right to McIntosh, and RSL was pounding on the door. Like you can see, Sporting KC, they were in full bunker mode. They were trying to ride out the storm, but they weren't able to be successful to do so because in the 70th minute, RSL finally got their deserved equalizer. It's Julio that scores that ties the game up at 2 apiece. Although you want to thank Danny Rosario for that because he got pickpocket. He pickpocketed him there, and he was in on goal there. Yeah, Danny Rosario, not a great moment for him. Like you cannot commit a WTF turnover, and if you're the last man, and you shouldn't be able to just dribble out against an attacker when you're the last man. Like that always gonna be smells trouble there, and that he didn't get the memo, and he was punished for that. And then Julio looked to try to get his second in the 88th minute, and he was actually in on goal again, but this time McIntosh comes up big with the savior, robbing him on a 1v1. But then on the other end, Beavers would rob Kinda in the back post, and again, this was very similar to what I said about the Petrovic say well, it was a powerful header in the back post by Gotti Kinda, and somehow Gavin Beavers, with some cat-like reflexes, able to push that one away. But there was no doubt the winners were up for grabs. Like both of these teams were pushing to trying to get the late winner in stoppage time. In fact, I wrote who can get the late winner in stoppage time. The answer is no one, as in the end it ends in a 2-2 draw. Shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 11 that Sporting KC had, but 9 shots on goal compared to 4 that Sporting KC had. Yeah, Kendo McIntosh was a busy man in this one. 2 shots off target for the 6 that Sporting KC had. Both teams had 1 shot that was blocked, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that RSL has in this one. And again, I also feel like both teams won't be happy with this result, with the way that, for RSL, they play well in this one. But they weren't able to get all 3 points. But at the same time, for Sporting KC, blowing a 2-0 lead at home is never a good feeling. But although I think you could say that at least they were able to get a draw out of this one because they didn't play well in this one either. But anyway, very entertaining game in terms of this one between Sporting KC and RSL. That being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the next 4 games as part of this 10-game action for match week number 24 in terms of these midweek action. So moving on in the next one is Nashville and the Philadelphia Union, and this game was very heated. And I know Nashville fans will be very upset in terms of the referee decision in this one. But what undone in this game was bad finishing for them. I mean, they had a lot of chances in this one, and it's not like Bendik had a good game in this one either. It was just them missing some prime opportunity in this one that comes back to haunt them in this game. Now, early on, Bunbury with the game's first shot, but he missed that one wide in the second minute. Before in the 9th minute, the post would deny Sullivan from long range. The post was definitely a story in this game too. I mean, there was a lot of shots in this one that hits off the post. On the other end, McNulton would hit it wide from close range before Bunbury was in on goal there, and he somehow puts that one over the bar. I mean, Teal Bunbury, yeah, this is a game that he's going to have nightmares about because there's he had a couple of really good looks that clearly should be buried for Nashville in this one. Though on the other end, Willis would deny Sullivan from close range as both teams was getting some grade A chances, and this is not a big surprise that is the case because both of these teams are really good team, albeit both of these teams have been kind of went through a little bit of a downward trend in these last couple of games, but you can see both of these teams were hungry to try to get a much needed win. And in the 38th minute, a penalty was given to the Union as Lovett brought down, I think it was Sullivan in the box. I forgot to put which Union player it was. I think it was Sullivan, that the player that was brought down in the box. Or actually, no, it's not Sullivan. I'm sorry. It's Gastak, the one that was brought down in the box. And he of course, won the penalty. So he's going to shoot the penalty there. And Daniel Gastak doesn't miss, and he doesn't miss here. He buries it to give the Union a 1-0 lead, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Well, in the second half, this is where the craziness begins. Leao would struck the post after he was trying to chip that one over Ben Dick, and again, the post has not been kind to either of these teams. It will continue to not be kind for either of these teams too. But in the 58th minute, Davis would put it over from close range as Nashville was pressing for an equalizer. And again, that was another good chance. I mean, Sean Davis, he found himself with some space, and he could have easily hits that one into the empty net, but he puts that one over. And then Pico become the latest victim of the post as he struck the post on a header. And then chaos resumed. I mean, it was just absolute chaos. It was a scramble in front of that Union box. Mukhtar trying to redirect it, but his shot was denied by Bendig, but Bendig didn't do a good job in terms of pushing that one away. It literally spilled right into a good spot where one of those Nashville players I thought for sure was gonna basically buries it in the back post. Nobody did. I mean, that one went wide, and I mean, bro, it looks like it's one of these days for Nashville. Like it feels like they're just been snake bin, and they're just getting blue ball in this one, and that kind of almost confirmed it in the 72nd minute when on the other end, Gastak would look like he scored the second goal. Unfortunately, the goal was disallowed for offside. And then in the 74th minute, this is where the fans really started to be livid at the referee, as no penalty was given to them after VAR deemed McGlynn didn't handball that one in the box. Now, I can understand why this wasn't a handball, and this actually is going to be a very similar play to one that I'll talk about in the game that I went to that is similar to this, where I never understand when a player handballs it and that when the ball hits their body part first and then they handballed it. I never understand whether or not if referee would be given a penalty or not, because I've seen it has been given, and I also have seen that it's not been given. And in this place again, it feels like that one was hit off of, I think, the head of McGlynn there, and then it kind of bounced into his hand. And again, depending on the interpretation, I guess maybe at least for this week, if the ball hits your hand but it hits off of your body part first, then it's not going to be called a penalty. So that of course is the case, but obviously that definitely got definitely does not please these Nashville fans. And these Nashville fans are very sensitive toward bad calls that goes or calls that goes against them. So I responded by a very loud "ref you suck" chant, and at least it's a "ref you suck" chant, because I know in some other game there's a more explicit kind of "ref you suck" chant, but here at least Nashville fans trying to keep this PG and maybe even PG-13 in terms of chanting "ref you suck" at them. And then in the 80th minute, a penalty was given to the Union as Lovitz brought down Gastag in the box. So yeah, that also doesn't please any Nashville fans, and Lovitz actually got himself a second yellow card there. Though this one, I mean, I don't think Nashville fans, if they look back at this, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of complaint about this. I mean, it was pretty clear that Lovitz brought down Gastag in the box, and Gastag basically won the second penalty. He gets to step up to take another penalty, and he buries it. So yeah, that made it 2-0 in favor of the Union. And while he was celebrating in front of the Nashville fans, in fact, he was celebrating right in front of the supporter group, the back line. Yeah, there was a bottle throw toward him there from the crowd. And look, I understand that those Nashville fans are very frustrated with some of they feel like some of the referee decision goes against them. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again: throwing stuff onto the pitch, that's something that you just hate to see. Like you don't want to see that happen, and we've seen it happen in this league before, and that it's kind of disappointing when that does happen, especially in that play too, when that bottle hits gas deck there. Well, actually, I think it hit one of the Union player. There was a couple of Union player that was joining gas day in the celebration, but still, actually, I think that was actually just plastics, and it wasn't really thrown with too much power. But that's a very dangerous thing, and you hate seeing that happen. So yeah, very unfortunate situation there. And then it really boiled over because in the 5th minute stoppage time we had Carranza and Shaq Moore forgot that this is not WWE and that this is actually a soccer game. But like I said, they forgot that this is not WWE because they turned this game into WWE. Like both of these players were wrestling down each other on the ground. And also, by the way, as the red card was shown, and after a couple of seconds when Danny Higginbottom basically analyzed this, I cannot believe he said that this is not worthy of a red card. Like, what are you? So apparently, when a player wrestle each other down like that, it's not worthy of a red card. Like, I mean, they just wrestle each other. That feels like violent conduct in my book, in anybody's book. In fact, I've seen before where we've seen some kind of WWE move that has happened. The most infamous one was when Tim Millian basically do a WWE move on Johnny Russell, and he got away with that one there. And yeah, in this play, it was kind of almost the same thing. And that again, it was just wild. It really boiled over. And that as the full time whistle blown, no surprise that the boos were raining down loud inside. And it wasn't for those Nashville players, but for the referee in this one. I mean, it was just total chaos in this one. And even Gary Smith, Kyla Lambert, and in the post game conference, he basically talk about how bad the refereeing crew is, and they also mentioned this is also the same refereeing crew that referee the game that Columbus had in the last game that of course got Wilfred Nancy sent off. So maybe Wilfred Nancy had some. Maybe right after all, maybe this refereeing crew isn't as good as is, and I have heard a lot of people have said that this refereeing crew hasn't been good and should not be refereeing games. And again, maybe they have a case because, if you have these kind of games like that, I mean, I know pro referees are bad in general, but, when you've been calling out multiple times, maybe there could be some changes and we'll see whether or not if pro will do something about that. But nevertheless, in terms of shots in this one, 18 shots committed, 9 that the Union has, 5 shots on goal for the 3 that Nashville has, 11 shots out off target for the 3 that the Union has, 4 shots out blocked for the 1 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 42% possession that the Union has. But if you just look past all the chaos that we saw late in this game, really the story of this game is just a classic example of one team being better in terms of their finishing and the other wasn't. And in this case, Nashville wasn't being clinical. So in the end, when you're not being clinical, and we've seen it happen a couple of times this season, you're probably going to lose the game. But that being said, moving on, in terms of the next match, is Colorado and the Portland Timbers. So this is the game that I mentioned. It's kind of count as a half of a game because this game started back on the 4th of July, but then it was postponed to a different day for the second half because the game was stopped because of inclement weather. But yeah, I mean this game kind of gone as much as you expected. I mean everybody when they saw this one, yeah, this looks like it's gonna end 0-0, and it definitely did. And also this doesn't help the fact that this will definitely go down as one of the more boring and probably the most boring game we've seen this season. Now, early on, in the first half, and this is going back to the 4th of July game, and it was kind of weird when I watched the highlights of this one. In the first half, it was played under the lights, and then in the second half, it was played under the sunshine. I mean, it was. I know both of these half was played on different day, but it's very weird whenever that happened. But yeah, for the first 20 minutes, at least back, and this is back when it was still happening on the 4th of July, there was nothing happened in the first 20 minutes, which again sounds about right in this game. You knew that this was a game where both teams is really struggling on the attacking end. It was going to be a bit of a slog fest. But in the 21st minute, the first shot of the game, see Bingham denying Abubakar on the header. Wilson then fires it wide from long range before Barrios heads it high from close as the Rapids was pushing to get the opener. The first shot of the game for the Timbers sees Larea puts it high from long range in the 35th. before in the 38th minute, Yarbrough would deny Nathan from close range, and we do head to halftime scoreless between both of these teams. And this is where we fast forward 8 days later because, again, this is when the game stopped because of inclement weather. So by the time this game resumed yesterday, again, it was weird because the game was now played in bright early evening sunshine, and they actually changed the refereeing crew, which I'm not sure, are they allowed to do that you when you basically just had the game happening about 8 days ago. I mean, I know there's a rule in MLS when you have a game that is resumed at a different day, you have to have the same roster unless if there's an injury that's happened. I feel like that should be the same for refereeing crew too. They also changed the commentator crews. I think it was in the first half it was, I think, Mark Rigolino, and I think another color commentator. I don't remember who it is, but in this one, it was Dre Cordero and Jamie Watson that was commentating for the remaining of the second half. I'm not gonna lie, that was a much better play-by-play crew than the first half one. But not much really happened in the first 10 minutes of the second half either. Fuzaka would then heads it high from close before Yarbrough denied Bowley in the near post. And then he tried to chip Yarbrough on the volley, but struck the post there in the 61st minute. Well, I mean, chip is definitely a understatement because he absolutely rocket that one that unfortunately the post kind of got in the way, but that was kind of the most threatening chance we had in this game, and Portland was definitely starting the second half and starting this makeup of the second half much better. Though Galvan did fires it high as that was Colorado's first shot since the restart. Bassett then heads it wide from close, and then he heads it high from close as well in the first minute of stoppage time. Yeah, in the end, it ends in a scoreless draw as neither of these teams can find a winner in the second half since the restart. And the shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 9 that the Timbers had, 2 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Rapids had, 4 shots off target compared to 7 that the Rapids had, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Timbers had, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to the 43% possession that the Timbers had in this one. And yeah, overall, again, everybody knew that this looked like it had 0-0 written all over it, and I was hoping maybe with the way that there's a bit of a break, maybe things would change, something similar to what we saw in that Dallas and St. Louis game. Nope. Instead, it turns out to be a scoreless game, and the less said about this game, the better, really. But moving on, in terms of the next match, so we also got another game that was delayed because of weather. Although this one, they did able to play the full game, and it didn't split like what we saw in the game between the Rapids and the Timbers, between Chicago and Montreal, as this game was delayed till 8:44 p.m. because of inclement weather. And by the time they restarted, it seemed like the Fire came out of the gate strong because in the ninth minute, Ryan Gutierrez would score his first goal of the season from Coots Diaz to give the Fire a 1-0 lead. That was the first shot of the game. And then on the second shot of the game, Chicago made it 2-0. It's Haile Selassie from Shaqiri to make it 2-0 in favor of Chicago. And the Fire clearly came out to play. Like Montreal, they definitely were all out of sort coming out of the gate after this lightning delay. So Toy did have the first shot for Montreal, but he missed that one wide before Gutierrez looked for his second goal, but he hits one right to C-Wasp. But then in the 34th minute, Xherdan Shaqiri would score from Haile Selassie to make it 3-0 in favor of the Fire. And again, it was kind of something off the training ground here. And then Shaqiri, just a vintage Xherdan Shaqiri strike from long range here, with perfect technique to curl that one into the top right of the corner. And yeah, the Fire made it 3-0 up to that point, and that's all they need. They did up to that point because really for the rest of the game they just kind of sat back and just kind of put it in cruise control. So in the 35th minute, a penalty was given to Montreal as She-Ho's handballed that one in the box. Lassiter, of course, steps up to look to get one back for Montreal. Post denied him. He struck the poster. He was trying to put that one in the bottom right, but just put it a little bit too far and hits the post. Saliba then puts it wide from long range before Brogy Odds would puts it wide from close in the 43rd minute. And to Montreal credit, it's not easy when you're 3-0 down when you're on the road, but they're definitely showing some fight and trying to get one back. But we do head to halftime with Chicago leading 3-0. In the second half, 04 looked to try to score against his former team, but he heads it right to Brady before he had another chance in the 55th minute, and actually does the same thing after there was a bit of a chaos in the firebox there, but didn't really resort into a goal. I mean, if Chinoso Ford did score, I wonder what his reaction is going to be. I think he's probably not going to be celebrating against his former team. But Montreal was definitely on the front foot. Again, the Fire, it seems like they thought that, well, we're 3-0 up. We played 35 minutes. That's good enough for us to rest for the rest of the way. And in some way, I think as much as I know, maybe some will say it's a little bit too early. It's not a bad strategy, especially when you play a midweek game. Maybe just kind of sit back a little bit. Maybe just think about not spend too much energy and hope to seize things out. And it also kind of helps the fact that Montreal, despite the fact that they were controlling the game, they weren't finding that clinical finishing. Brady would then deny Humdy from close before Toy would pose it wide from close range, and then Lassiter puts it high from long range in the 85th minute. And yeah, in the end, the Fire again, they only need to play 35 minutes to get that 3-0 lead, and that's all they need to get all 3 points in this one. 3-0 win against Montreal. The shots in this one, 5 shots compared to 17 that Montreal has. 5 shots on goal compared to 4 that Montreal has. I think this is really one of the few times where we see a team that had exactly no shots off target and no shots that was blocked. Again, Fire, they was really sitting back. Like they pretty much did no attacking whatsoever after the 35th minute mark. 8 shots off target compared to none that the Fire has. 5 shots that was blocked compared to none that the Fire has in possession wise. 62% possession compared to 38% possession that Chicago has in this one. And for Montreal, if the game started in the 35th minute, they might have had a chance to win this one, but unfortunately the game did not start at the 35th minute. And again, when you go down 3-0 on the road, it's always almost impossible to come back. But at least they show some fight in this one, but still very disappointing resort as the road woes continue for this Montreal team. They've only won once this season on the road. But that being said, moving on into the next game on the board is LAFC and St. Louis. And really, for the last 20 minutes of this game, we started to see the LAFC that we know because throughout this game we kind of saw an LAFC team that was kind of struggling to do anything going for on the attack. But then, as soon as the minute hit 70, they realized that they're LAFC and that they should be a lethal kind of team, and they definitely show that in this game against St. Louis. Now, early on, Acosta would puts it high from long range. Little did we know that that was really the only good chance we had for a long time, as not much happened early in this game either. Only 2-1 in terms of the shots through 29 minutes. In the 39th minute, Hollinshead would hit it wide from close before Ostrak would hit it right to McCarthy, as that was actually the first shot on goal of the game in the 45th minute. Now we head to the second half, and in the second half, Pompeo would puts it high from long range. Once again, not much really happened coming out of the gate. It's been very stop and go this game. Shroud then puts it wide from close before Vela would puts it just wide from close, and then Bartlett would pulls it high from long range in the 67th minute. And I thought finally chances kind of start to come. Like it was kind of a very stop and go kind of a game. But the chances was coming, and so does LAFC getting their opening goal. As in the 72nd minute, they finally get the opening goal here. It's Vela scoring for Cifuentes to make it 1-0 in favor of LAFC. Not long after, it was 2-0 in favor of LAFC, as Stepan Buke would score here from Bawanga to make it 2-0. Bawanga did try to get on the score sheet, but like I said, he's kind of been snake bitten lately, so he was denied by the post. But in the third minute of stoppage time, Cifuentes would get on the score sheet here. I think this is the first goal for Jose Cifuentes. I mean, it's been a rough season for Jose Cifuentes, but he scored here for Ordaz to make it 3-0 in favor of LAFC, and that would be the final score of this one. As the shots in this one, 11 shots compared to 9 that St. Louis had, 3 shots on goal for the 2 that St. Louis had. Both teams had 5 shots as off target, 3 shots that was blocked for the 2 that St. Louis had, and possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession that St. Louis has in this game. And again, for LAFC, at least in the last 20 minutes, they realized that they are LAFC, and we kind of saw a little bit of that in the latter part of it, and we'll see whether or not if they can continue to discover that. I mean, it's also hard to believe that this is a battle between two teams that is first and third in the standings. When you look at one team that is LAFC that's kind of been struggling on the attack, and then on the other end with St. Louis. I mean, St. Louis has done well, but yeah, this was kind of one of the worst games that they played this season, and this is just another example of how in the Western Conference it is just so wide open right now. Like right now in the West, there literally is no good, not a team that I think anyone on fear, which is why I think that just makes it very interesting down the stretch. Where once we get to the playoffs, I think in the East you maybe can predict who's gonna make it out of the East. You cannot predict who's gonna be making it out of the West because again, there's so much flaws in terms of some of these teams. I mean, there's some strengths that the Western Conference team has had, and that there's times where these Western Conference team might have found a good spell of play, but then it just quickly struck down. What I'm basically trying to say is there's just no consistency in terms of some of these teams that we've seen in the West, which is why it just feels very wild, and that the points total, and also you can even tell in the loss total too. I think this is now what the sixth loss this season for St. Louis. And usually, when you have six loss in a season, you would not be at the top of the standings, even by now standards. But yet, I think they're still at the top of the standing right now. But at least LAFC is definitely trying to creep up in terms of that. I think now they got themselves back to second place, if I'm not mistaken. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last two games to finish off the 10-game action of match week number 24 in terms of these midweek action. So moving on into the final two games, and we start off with the game that I went to yesterday between the Quakes and Seattle, and a weird feeling because normally when I go to watch the Quakes play, they lose. And that's why I said that I'm kind of like a curse whenever I go to PayPal Park because the Quakes are probably going to lose or they get a draw, but got to win in this one against Seattle. And I think it's probably because I sit near those Sounders fans. There was a lot of Sounders fans at PayPal Park for this midweek game. And, I got to give credit to them, of course, making their way down in Seattle, though I have a feeling some of them probably lives in the Bay Area. Because the reason why I say that is because last time when I was sitting with some Sounders fan, which was actually at their home at Lumen's Field, I think about a year ago, it was their home opener against Nashville and they lost that one. So yeah, apparently that is kind of the thing that breaks the curse because they won this one against Seattle, and early on they had a chance to score just 1 minute in, and Triaco had a shot that was deflected and goes wide, and then on the other end, Bear would hit one right to Mark Sinkowski. I thought Seattle had most of the possession as the Quakes were elected to sit back. That feels like it was the right idea. In fact, I feel like from this match we have seen teams that have been able to win games and actually get big wins against opposition of just elected to sit back. And I think that's not a big surprise because, we've seen before this season and really for the past couple of years where just because you dominate possession and you dictate the plays, if you don't do anything with those possession and don't create some dangerous chances, you're probably not going to end up on the winning side. And that kind of was the story in this game for Seattle, where they dominate possession, but they just had no idea what to do whenever they get to the final third. And then in the 18th minute, it was a penalty that was given to the Quakes as Yamar actually brought down Ibobasi in the box. So again, very uncharacteristic because Yamar is a very good defender for the Sounders, and that it's just very uncharacteristic of him making a rash challenge to bring Ibobasi in the box. But the Quakes gets a penalty. Espinoza steps up for the penalty. He doesn't miss penalties, and he slots that one home to make it 1-0 in favor of the Quakes. The Sounders continue to dominate possession, but it just looked like it's just too stagnated. Like there was multiple times whenever I see the Sounders go on the attack, and it kind of makes me kind of look how they have been in the past couple of weeks or even this past month, where they just have no idea what to do once they get to the final third. They either overplay it when they're in the final third, or the fact that it just kind of breaks down. We just saw so many times that has happened, and there's not really a lot of time where you kind of felt like the Quakes really had to scramble because of the way that the Sounders just looked very stagnated going forward. Guerrezo then blasts one into the stands before Ibobasi blasts one into Manana International Airport. I mean, that was probably one of the most anticlimactic free kick opportunity that the Quakes have had in a while. I mean, that one was a great opportunity from about 20 yards out, and Ibobasi just got that one completely wrong. Then Espinoza would pulls it wide in the first minute of stoppage time as the Quakes were pressing to try to get the second before halftime. But we do head to halftime with the Quakes leading 1-0. Now, in the second half, Espinoza did try to chip Cleveland from long range, but that one goes high, and that came off a WTF turnover from the Sounders. Again, very uncharacteristic. This is a team that doesn't commit too many WTF turnover. And then in the 48th minute, Jack Scahan thought that he puts it sit into the back of the net and score the second one, but the flag did not agree with him, and I gotta say, it was very, very close. Like, obviously. See, they didn't show the replay on the big screen of this, but that's why Apple TV exists, and that I did go to Apple TV to see on the replay whether or not indeed that was the correct call. It is, and I gotta say it wasn't by much. Like it was maybe by only a half of head that Scahan was just in an offside position in the last defender, but nevertheless, it was called offside. It remains 1-0, but I thought it was a promising start for the Quakes. Like they were looking to try to get that second goal because as much as I know the Sounders haven't done much on the attacking end, you don't want to just hold on to that 1-0 lead, and especially knowing this is a team that have seen themselves just being a little bit too complacent after getting that lead and just kind of ride it out for the rest of the game and see about a 1-0 win. I mean, I just feel like that's probably not going to work. The Sounders are still going to have maybe one or two good looks, especially when they bring on some of their big weapons because they kind of rest some of their guys in this midweek games too. In the 56th minute, a couple would puts it high in the near post as the Sounders started to control the possession against the Quakes. But again, despite the fact they control the possession, they weren't really doing much, and the Quakes were doing a good job in terms of sitting back and hitting the Sounders on the counterattack. Triangle would then hit the side netting off the deflection, but then in the 65th minute, oh my goodness! I mean, this was just insane. Like I, I have seen some great goals that scored at PayPal Park, both seeing the Quake score and the opposition scoring, but this one is going to be right up there in terms of the top three best goal I've ever seen in person. I mean, Triangle, not only he hits that one off the volley so sweetly, what makes this incredibly insane is the fact that this came off of a corner. Like this was Espinoza delivering this ball from a corner to Triangle, something kind of almost like off the training ground. And Triangle, I mean, we've seen so many players have trying to strike it. If you get it right, you might be able to get it close to be on target, but if you get it wrong, it can be very embarrassing. But here, Triangle not only get it right, but he get it so right that it was a laser beam. Like that one passed Cleveland before Cleveland even had a chance to save that one. I mean, that is hands down the goal of the week, maybe even contention for goal of the year. I mean, we have seen some incredible goals have scored this season, but that is definitely going to be go up there as one of the best one. That was insane of how that one went in. And by the way, I know what will be kind of forgotten in terms of that is that Espinoza also did pass Shea Salinas as the Quakes' all-time assist leader. He was tied with Shea at that point, and that I guess that probably is a great way for him to pass Shea Salinas and get that top assist mark because I mean that was just insane. Like that was just something that is probably a goal that I know that like I said, I've seen some amazing goals I've scored. I mean, probably one that I remember that are equally as good as this is when Quincy America chipped the goalkeeper in that game against the Timbers back in I think 2017 if I remember. That was kind of an insane goal, but this was even more, I would say this could be even more insane because of how hard and the technique has to be in terms of trying to strike it. But yeah, that made it 2-0 in favor of the Quakes. Chu did try to get one back, but he puts it wide from close before Marie tried to stab one in the back post, but he just missed it. They checked to see if Rodriguez did handball that one in the box, which VAR says no. And again, this goes back to what I said before, where it depends on the interpretation. This one did hit off of Rodriguez fine, but it did kind of bounce off of his hand, and his hand was outstretched. But again, sometimes we have seen that referee has called that because of the interpretation. Sometimes they said they give them the benefit of the doubt, and I guess maybe they gave him the benefit of the doubt that because it hit his fine and hit his hand, that's just kind of unfortunate. But nevertheless, in the end, the Quakes they were able to win 2-0 in this one, and the shots in this one, 15 shots for the 9 that the Sounders had, 3 shots on goal for the 2 that the Sounders had, 8 shots off target for the 1 that the Sounders had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 6 that the Sounders had, and possession-wise, 61% possession compared to 39% possession that the Sounder or the Quakes has in this one. It can't be the Sounders because they were dominating possession in this one. But like I said, it really doesn't mean nothing when they barely threaten Marcinkowski goal in this one whatsoever. And also with this win, I think the Quakes have also snapped their 5-game winless run that they've been going, and they're now going all the way back up to fifth in the Western Conference. And I believe this is also going to be the last game that the Quakes are going to be playing until August. I think they have a bye week next week. They get the bye week sweepstake that we see each team does get whenever you have like a 15 or a 14 game action with just like 2019. But yeah, they're gonna be all for a while. Their next game is not gonna be until they play against the Timbers in Leeds Cup on the road, and that should be interesting to see that this team will get a rest in terms of that. I mean, in some way they definitely need a rest because they've been playing a lot of games in the last couple of weeks. I mean, every team has played a lot of games in the last couple of weeks, so this is definitely a well-deserved break that the Quakes is going to be getting until Leeds Cup does happen in late July. But that being said, moving on into the last game on this board is Vancouver and Austin. So for the Whitecaps, they're back in winning ways, getting this 2-1 win, and they waste no time to take the lead in this one. Just 28 seconds into this game, Pedro Vite would score from Brian White to make it 1-0 in favor of the Whitecaps. I believe they said that he become the second players to have two goal scoring inside the first 30 seconds in a season. I mean, that's an interesting stat line, but yeah, Pedro Vite, he did score an early goal this season to inside 30 second, and he did it again and quickly. The Whitecaps jumped out to a 1-0 lead. White did try to look for another one, but he missed high there. I thought Brian White had a good game in this one. I mean, he had also had a lot of chances in this one to score or score a goal from himself, and he had another chance in the 21st minute, but he only finds the side netting in the near post. It was all Vancouver. I mean, Vancouver was dominating this game. They were pushing to trying to get another goal, though Takaoka did deny Finley in the near post, but it did feel kind of lead to Driussi, who heads it high before Uruti puts it wide from close, and you can guess that Olsen has woke up. Like after a slow start to this game, they've woke up. They're looking to try to get the equalizer, but we do head to halftime with Vancouver leading 1-0. So that lead quickly disintegrate in the second half because just 2 minutes in, Rodney Redis score a goal. Yeah, when Rodney Redis score a goal, it doesn't happen been often, but that when that happened, it must be kind of conflicted feeling if you're an Austin fan because I believe last time he scored a goal for Austin, he got himself sent off. So I'm pretty sure a lot of Austin fans were hoping, yeah, hopefully he doesn't get himself sent off this time. But he ties the game up at one apiece. White did look to try to respond, but he missed wide on the header from the corner. But at the end of the 71st minute, the Whitecaps does retake the lead. It's Cordova scoring from goal to make it 2-1 in favor of the Whitecaps because well, what's even more crazier than Rodney Redis scoring goal? How about Sergio Cordova breaking his curse here? Because that's how it works. Like if you have a guy that have one team that have a guy that's been one of the most hated player in the fan base able to score a goal. How about you have the other guy that's also kind of being a little bit hated and a guy that has been going through this long scoring curse, like Sergio Cordova, and had him score a goal here. But yeah, he made it 2-1 in this one, and he almost second guessed himself too. Like the fact that I don't know if he hesitate just so that he want to show some patience, or the fact that he kind of second guessed himself a bit because of how open he got. Either way, at least he puts that one in, and like I said, the curse finally is over. He finally scored a goal for this Whitecaps scene of what seems like it's been forever. But in the 81st minute, White did heads it wide from the corner, and then the post would deny Brian White on the header in the back post. I mean, Brian White must be thinking what he has to do in this game to score a goal. But the Whitecaps were definitely looking to kill this game off with the third goal. But for Austin, they might get some hope because it was announced it was 10 minutes of stoppage time in this one, and we would play a little bit more because in the 10th minute stoppage time, they did check to see whether or not if Blackman did foul Bruin inside the box, which VAR says nope. I think that's the correct call because you can clearly see that foul happened outside the box. But as the final whistle was blown and the Whitecaps won 2-1, Vanni Sartini was very animated. Like he was having some choice words with those fourth official before he was doing the post-game handshake with Josh Wolf, and I guess he was angry because he was mad the fact that there was 10 minutes of stoppage time. I mean, there was definitely some stoppage in the second half, but I don't think he was happy the fact that there was that much of stoppage time, and especially with the way that they would keep playing past the 10 minutes. I think he was also mad because of that. But nevertheless, Vancouver does bounce back and they win 2-1 in this one. And the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to 8 that Austin has, 4 shots on goal compared to 2 that Austin has, 8 shots off target compared to 5 that Austin had, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Austin has, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that the Whitecaps has in this game. There you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of this 10-game review that I did. Again, I was thinking of maybe splitting this into 2 parts, but since there's like 10 games, I think I could have just done like a full review, and that I could do it like under an hour, which I believe I might have just done so, because I'm checking on the clock and I think I've just about hit under the hour mark in this review. But nevertheless, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 10 games, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.